I grew up in a time when cars didn't have electronic fuel gauges. There was just this little needle that went from full to empty, and it was up to me to figure out how far I could go before I ran out of gas. So when I got my first car, way back in the 80s, I quickly developed a knack for knowing exactly how much I could push my luck with that fuel gauge before I ran out of gas and had to walk to the next station. Well, little did I know that years later, that unique skill would actually help me in high-stakes corporate negotiations with millions of dollars on the table. You see, unlike a car, when your negotiation runs out of gas, you can't just get out and keep walking in the same direction. If you hit a wall during your negotiation, something real and not some fake objection being used to create leverage or buy time, and neither side's willing to concede on the point, you're toast. Any more discussion on that point shows that it was never really a deal breaker. Or worse, the side that's willing to concede doesn't understand the implications for them in that deal. Now, I've posted videos in the past talking about the importance of really understanding your side's requirements. You know, the business problem that you're trying to solve. Well, it's just as important, sometimes even more important, to understand the breaking point, the BATNA, both for the party that you're representing and the folks on the other side of the table. Oh, great advice, Mohammed. Now, how do I do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's actually not that hard. You just need to ask a few questions. Now, thankfully, in most technology deals, the breaking point usually breaks down to one or more of the following. First, what's the number? In any deal involving the purchase of goods and services, there are two sets of numbers, the buyer's number and the seller's number. Your number is easy to figure out. It's usually tied to a budget, but you need to know the other side's number as well. Next, what are the non-negotiable legal or business terms? Suppliers are always telling me that their standard legal terms in the contract are non-negotiable. I've even used that line a few times myself. It's almost never true, but there may be something that's potentially a deal breaker in the terms and conditions. And finally, what's the drop dead date? You know, sometimes it's a hard deadline with real implications if the deal isn't done. Other times, it's completely made up, or it's tied to someone's commission. Your job is to know the difference. Knowing the real breaking point in a negotiation can be the difference between caving under pressure and staying firm on what you know you can get in the deal. Now, in my next video, I'll dive deeper into these 3 points, but if you or your team really wants to hone your skills as a technology contracts negotiator, it wouldn't hurt to check out my negotiation workshop at oneviewnow.com. Folks, it's a new year. We have new resolutions, new goals, new savings targets. Some of us have new haircuts, and most of us have a new training budget. You can use those training dollars to sit in a class for 3 days, soak up a ton of information, and then sit there and stare at your monitor on your next day back at the office trying to remember anything from the class. Or you can spend a day with me, and I'll show you every technique I've been using for over the past 25 years to negotiate really good deals for my clients. And when you're back at your desk staring at your monitor, you can use one of the free consulting hours I include in my training to call me up and review or get my help on a deal you're working on. If any of that resonates with you, reach out and we'll find a time to chat.